the sort of elephant in the room, COVID-19. Um, and I did say to the students that we will be looking at this area. So, and I know you said yourself that you're out in Saudi Arabia, and like most countries, they've gone through a process of lockdown. So before I ask you to give your account of how Saudi Arabia is dealing with the whole aspect of protecting their society from people who are in the society or people who may be coming into work in the country, how do you feel that the UK government is giving information on the enforcing authority that it should be delivering down to local authorities or the HSE or different sectors to make sure that they are protected in this situation? Because someone like yourself who's now be working in those different territories, where are you taking your guidance from? Because a lot of people are saying that the government, and I can only sort of verbatim give a response to that they're not quite sure what they're doing. And it's sort of like a mismatch of information to different sectors. People are trying to figure it out for themselves. Do you find that that is the case, or do you think the UK government is doing a relatively good job in informing the industry and the wider industry to that?
Look, to a certain extent, I mean, the government's never going to win on this because they're always going to be criticised, and I'm not pro anybody. But you think back to February or March this year, and we were all watching the news, and we were looking at what was going on in China, and none of us, not one of us, had any kind of idea that it was going to have an impact on our society like it had. Think back a few years to swine fever and bird flu and all those other things that happened, and they all happened over there, and we all said, "Oh, that's terrible, isn't it?" But not one of us probably thought, what would be the impact if that happened in our own country? So we end up in a situation where there's no précis, there's nothing that the government can use directly to open a magic box that says how to deal with COVID-19. They kind of have to deal with the evidence of what's directly in front of them, and deal with an increasingly sort of vociferous media who don't seem to be getting behind the nation and trying to sort of come through this thing and survive, rather than be just critical about what people are not doing or what things have been done that are not right. It's taken a while. I mean, you've got to look at it from a positive point of view. I work for a company down in London called Glass. I offer them, advice and guidance, and I run a couple of contracts for them. They're a crewing company. They've got 600 guys on their books. When COVID came along and lockdown happened, there were 600 guys there with no work. Okay, because our industry generally, and Glass work in events, TV, and media. So there was nothing for them to do. The government came up with a furlough scheme, and the furlough scheme actually helped all those 600 guys to survive through however long. And there is evidence now that work is starting to pick up again, which is fantastic. But that was a major sort of step in the right direction as far as the government was concerned. How we controlled it, it's not for me to say whether they did the best job possible, but the pressure to get business working again is enormous. And you can look around the world at different countries and how they've approached it. The US is in a terrible state at the moment. Things are really not going well down in one of my favorite cities in the world, Rio, because they've got huge problems down there with it now. We even, do you remember just a few weeks ago, and a perfect example, we were all looking at Sweden, because Sweden was still turning up at the pub every night, and we were all kind of locked down, and we were all asking ourselves, why are we doing what we're doing when they're just going along and doing their own thing, and everything seems to be fine? Well, evidence showed a short while later that actually life wasn't so great in Sweden, and they've adopted the same kind of policies and procedures that most Western governments have done. So, I think that the government is doing what they can. I just cannot believe that the pot of money is not empty yet. I mean, when you think about what, just in the last couple of days, what was it, 1.57 billion
Yes.
Put aside for culture and the arts.
Yes.
But as a friend of mine said on LinkedIn yesterday, that's 1.57 billion to go back to work. Mm-hmm. The question from our industry at the moment is, what can we do to put measures in place so we can go back to work, so that people can enjoy festivals and cultural events and that kind of thing? Because if you invest that kind of money, surely you're going to come up with some kind of a solution.